Good morning. Thank you to my escort committee from home. It's always good to be around those guys. Just got to spend a little time back home with Joe and those guys a couple weeks ago at the Democratic Convention, so it's good to see them again so soon. Thanks, Joe and Rich and the entire board for inviting me to participate this morning and tell you a little bit about the strategic approach at the building trades that we continue to follow and build upon. And we have more reason to be hopeful today than we did yesterday. We're on a continued growth trajectory and one that's remained fairly consistent since the economic collapse of 2008. Our work hours are up, our membership's up, and our market share is steadily but slowly increasing. You know, our purpose at the building trades sometimes gets confused by other labor organizations, and we try to be sensitive to the thoughts, but ours are pretty simple. It's to create work opportunities that are vast in number, which are accompanied by middle-class, family-sustaining wage and benefit standards that eventually become the norm and not the exception all across the construction industry, not just the unionized industry. We're driven to create opportunities and pathways for the next generation. This is something that Joe and the rest of the board and our team at the building trades and across SMART and all the unions spend a lot of time on. As how do we create opportunities for the next generation of skilled union construction workers, particularly women, communities of color, and veterans. And I'm happy to report that we have 100 apprenticeship readiness programs going across the United States today, and that number is growing. That's helping to create those opportunities and move those so deserving people into our organizations. You know, North America's building trades unions are fast developing a reputation as a valuable, reliable partner in helping to rebuild lives and strengthen whole communities. Now, we spend a lot of time also, and Joe's a big part of it, particularly with one group that we work with, the American Chemistry Council, with building labor management relationships on the national, international level. And we're gaining increased attention for building a new labor management paradigm in the United States through formal partnerships with entire industries and individual companies. The oil and natural gas industry, the chemical industry, as I mentioned, power generation, nuclear. Our strategic message is this: we're not your grandfather's building trades anymore. Our approach today is centered upon becoming a value-added partner to these industries based on the multitude of assets that we bring to the table, from legislative, regulatory, and political expertise to, of course, our training. Our objective is to position our unions as the preferred vendor supplier for companies in these industries. And we put a lot of effort into this. I think in June at Sheet Metal Local 12 in Pittsburgh, we had a tour of national folks from the chemistry industry, along with local politicians and others, to see the kind of training apparatus that we have, the investment that's made by SMART. And I think later this month we'll go to Houston, Joe, down to Local 12, again with another group of people. This is something that we do on a regular basis to show them the investment that we make into our industry, into training and turning out the most skilled, most productive, safest craft workforce in the world. So thank you for your hosting those, Joe. They're really important to our mission. Now, something else that we put a lot of time and energy into lately is changing some federal rules on how our pension investments can be made and how we can take advantage of the opportunities that those changes create. The new imperative bulletin from the Department of Labor makes it easier for pension funds to make economically targeted investments, and such funds as ULICO's J for Jobs and Infrastructure, AFL-CIO's Housing Investment Trust, Building Investment Trust, MEPT, your local real estate investment trust funds across the country. We now have changed the imperative rules that make it easier for trustees to make the decision and make it more difficult for, in some cases, for consultants who sit on our pension funds to talk us out of those good, sound investments in vehicles or create work opportunities for our members and our contractors. You should be asking your attorney what those changes were in that bulletin and how that affects the opportunity to invest your pension money, because if we can't invest in ourselves, who can we invest in? With increased pension fund dollars going into these funds, we're fast moving towards a future whereby ULICO, HIT, and BIT become major financial conduits for residential commercial construction projects that employ our members. And with these new rules in place, the ground is being laid for the creation of a construction financing organization that will enable us to create influence on projects in many areas. I spoke of the National Labor Management Organizations that we built with petrochemical and power and gas and oil. Well, the next one that the board has charged us with is to do something in finance across all the people that invest in construction projects, from insurance companies to Wall Street bankers to our friendly Ullico, HitBits, and everybody in between. And the goal of this organization that we're attempting to build is to get to a place where we set a standard across those that invest in the construction of infrastructure, residential, institutional, and commercial construction in the United States, that they agree to minimum thresholds where they're investing in projects. When we have a minimum threshold that we can work with, that makes us much more competitive, and we become a go-to source for the building of those projects. We're going to spend a lot of time on that and hope to report out on our success. Another area which we spend a lot of time in, and I'd like to say this to this group, and I appreciated the speakers that were here before, and I know we're in Illinois with a strong Democratic history, politics. It doesn't define who we are in the building trades. I'd like to say that we're a labor organization that dabbles in politics, but we have to be engaged and we have to be involved. We have to just be careful that politics doesn't take over everything that we need to accomplish on a daily basis as representatives of construction craft professionals, because as important as politics are, the other work that we do in organizing, training, recruiting, and deploying skilled craft people is just as important to bring value to the construction industry. But politics, we must be engaged. The building trades is putting increased emphasis on bipartisan politics. You heard describe the governor that they have in Illinois as the worst, and he probably is the worst in the history of the country. And Illinois traditionally is a Democratic state. That's not the case in many states in the United States. In many states in the United States, Democrats aren't in power, Republicans are in power. And when Republicans are in power, special interests can use them as a vehicle to move legislation that has a devastating effect on our ability of our members to maintain their place in the middle class. That's why we put an emphasis on trying to build what we call building trades majorities at all levels of government. And it's not as difficult as you may seem, considering when it comes to public policy. Our priorities are rather straightforward. We don't have a wish list that's pages long in the building trades. Ours are pretty simple. Jobs, first and foremost. Public infrastructure investments, energy infrastructure, and community standards like prevailing wage laws, project labor agreements, and fair workforce policies. These are issues that can and do resonate with lawmakers of both parties and at all levels of government across this nation. Our job is to make sure that we are taking time to educate and engage lawmakers on both sides of the aisle so that they understand our values and our business model. So I urge you to be steadfast in working to engage legislators on both sides of the aisles where you live. We can no longer kid ourselves. The United States is a 50-50 country when it comes to the political leanings here. We need to adapt to that reality. We have to be able to work both sides of the aisle to maintain the economic trajectory for our membership and grow the middle class in the United States. We can't do it with one party. We know what our preferences and we know what our wishes, wants, and desires are. We wish we had a supermajority in every state legislature like they have here in Illinois. The fact of the matter is we don't. Unless we engage and convince people of our business model and the issues of jobs, infrastructure, energy, and standards that are important to us on the other side of the aisle, we'll continue to go backwards in many states in the United States, and we can't afford to do that. One of the ways we do that, like I described, two recent visits, or one we just had, another one we will have in Houston this month, is to take people to see the investment that you make in your training apparatus, that world-class training infrastructure that SMART has across the United States and Canada, that every building trades union has, where we spend over $1 billion of our members' money every year to make sure that we have the latest tools and technologies and we turn out the most highly skilled, most productive, safest craft workforce in the world. People appreciate from both sides of the aisle that they're self-funded, that we don't rely on government to do it for us, that we use our own money, make our investment in ourselves. And when you get the opportunity to get people through those training centers, you open eyes. You might not change hearts and votes right away, but they'll have a better understanding of what it is that you do and who we are. So I urge you to continue to do that. Now, this is an election year, and it's a big election year. And my board has spent a lot of time going back 18 months thinking through, planning, and looking at what we need to do to be successful, who our candidate or candidates need to be in particular, and how we convince a skeptical membership, a very skeptical membership, who's heard a lot of promises for a long time from a lot of politicians, including a lot of Democrats, that have never materialized. When we've had stagnant wages, increasing costs for health care, unfair competition across the United States, people are a little tired, and our polling shows this. And we recognize that we have differing of opinion amongst our membership. Our job is to give our people the facts, not tell them how to vote. Give them the facts, and ultimately, the vast majority of our membership will make up their mind. And this engagement that we're making across the building trades is based on a simple concept. We support those candidates that are committed to creating work opportunities in the construction industry, protecting standards for the jobs, and offering the types of training and educational investments in our union that our unions are making in communities across the United States. Pretty simple what we're looking at. And in the presidential race, there's only one candidate that's taking time to understand us and our values, and not just in 2016, but for decades. And I'd like to say this because I know we went through an exciting primary in both the Republican and Democratic Party, and it's important to note, from the national building trade standpoint, there was only ever one candidate of the 20 that ran that ever rang our doorbell and asked to come in and talk to us, who was interested in our endorsement and talking to us about her policy and her plans, if successful, in being President of the United States. No other candidate, Republican or Democrat, ever asked to meet with us. I know sometimes that gets lost in social media and other places out there, but they're the facts. Only one candidate, Hillary Clinton, asked to meet with us. And she laid out a very good program. We're impressed. And one of the things that's most important about platforms for political candidates, are they actually achievable? And we think many parts of hers is achievable. But we also, going back, know that Donald Trump has that message that appeals to a lot of our members, particularly in places like Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Wisconsin. National Building Trades, in close cooperation with SMART and all our affiliated unions, is mounting an aggressive political education and outreach program aimed at our rank and file members. Again, not telling people how to vote, not even asking them how they're going to vote yet, but explaining the issues that are important based on the polling that we did, that they told us the issues that were important to them. Of course, always number one jobs. One that really surprised us with the polling of our members was security. Security was number 2 amongst building trades members. Infrastructure, energy infrastructure standards. Those are the things we'll concentrate on. We created an organization called Hard Hats for Hillary. It's designed to explain her plans to move a significant infrastructure proposal as one of them in the first 100 days in office. Her support for our nation's energy infrastructure. Her strong and unyielding support for prevailing wage protections, project labor agreements, and our apprenticeship training infrastructure. We'll also remind our members of how Donald Trump has, and on numerous occasions, stiffed union contractors on projects on which they worked. And one thing that's important that you know, Donald Trump's not a union developer. Now, Donald Trump built this building across the street probably 2008 or 9, maybe 10. Not quite sure when they finished that up, and he built that 100% union. But he's done a lot of work in a lot of different places where he hasn't used us. Right now, he's building a hotel in the old post office in Washington, D.C., where he's not using us. Now, we got a couple crafts that got some work on that project. Donald Trump wouldn't return my call 2.5 years ago when it was first announced, where I asked to come to New York and meet with him. Wouldn't even return our call, and has pursued a low-road strategy on that project, just like others he has done across the United States. And he's not that big a developer anymore either. If the guys from New York were here, they tell you there's probably 20 developers, 30 developers in New York that are bigger than Donald Trump in New York. but he's got to appeal to our members because some of the things that he says. But they need to know that. He's not a union guy. He hasn't been a union guy. And on top of that, he's screwed so many contractors of ours over the years and put them out of business, which hurt our trust funds, our pensions, and our health and welfare funds. Our guys might have gotten their money, but our funds didn't get their money because our contractors went belly up because Donald Trump didn't pay them. And one other thing he does that's important that our members know about as he talks on the campaign trail, he continues to this day to utilize foreign guest workers in his business endeavors. He's got application in for H-2B visa workers as we speak, as he's on the campaign trail railing against it. He's doing it for Mar-a-Lago down in Florida so he can staff his hotel. So from now to Election Day, I urge each and every one of you to stay actively involved in the SMART membership education program, especially when it comes to job site visits and those member-to-member communications. We know that nobody trusts anybody more than they trust their local leadership to have an honest conversation with them about the issues that are important to your local union, your members, and your members' family. It can't be done from this podium. It can't be done from Washington. It has to be done on the ground where you live. And we're going to be coordinating many Hard Hats for Hillary events in battleground states beginning in August and lasting right up to Election Day. And a lot of these events will be at our training centers. We're hopeful that every union gets the opportunity to have an event at a training center somewhere in a battleground state. So I urge you to stay engaged in the process and make it a priority, because we need to ensure that our members and all building trades members understand that we need a president who has our back. And that candidate's Hillary Clinton. I say that with all sincerity. Is she perfect? No. Can she fix every one of our problems? No. And she's not claiming she can, and we're not asking her to. She has no magic wand. She will not be our business agent. That job is reserved for the people in this room. What she will do is put forth policies that give us the chance to grow ourselves, to fix our own problems, and to continue the upward trajectory of our membership and their families to maintain and grow their place in the middle class. I know she will do that. So we wholeheartedly endorse her. So in closing, we're on the right track. Our strategic approach is not perfect, but it's sound. Like I said, work hours are up, membership is up. Business and industry are starting to take notice of our overall value proposition. We're gaining the attention and support from policymakers and community leaders across the USA via our apprenticeship readiness model and our formal apprenticeship education and training infrastructure. We're working to tighten our approach to politics and embrace the greater commitment to constructing building trades majorities at the state and local level, where we're well positioned for even greater market share and membership gains in the future. And if we can help get Hillary Clinton elected this November, we'll be even in greater position to advance our business model and the greater market share gains for the union construction industry. But all this cannot be achieved and sustained without the tireless and dedicated efforts of the local union leadership. For SMART, it's the people in this room. The direct day-to-day contact with our rank-and-file members. It's up to you to make sure that our jobs are trouble-free and projects in which we work come in on time and on budget. It is you that serve on the front lines to create building trades majorities at all levels of government. And it is you that we will rely upon to make sure that our membership is fully informed about the issues and the stakes during this election year. Without you, we have no movement. There is no building trades without the people in this room. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank each and every one of you for your dedication to this great union and for what you do day in and day out to advance the mission of North America's building trades. Thank you very much.